Good morning, everybody. One more day in paradise. So this is a new program, and welcome to Let's Talk About Christianity. Buenos dias. So we have a new friend this morning, if Jeff Jenkins. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Pablo. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, it's our pleasure too. Hi, Kit. Hi, Zach. Morning, buddies.
I'm glad you know my name, Pablo. Thank you.
Remember.
Thank you for saying my name.
Yeah, we had to put our names in the boxes here so that Pablo could remember who we were. You know,
It was Pablo's turn to do the introduction, and he's sitting there going, okay, that's Keith Albright, that's Zach Collins, and that's Jeff Jenkins. Okay.
Well, yes, we do have Jeff with us today, and Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the program with us today. Jeff, we've not really had much chance to talk or to even really tell you what we're doing. This podcast, we don't do a lot of ministry stuff. We're not geared more toward the ministry side. We are primarily trying to offer encouragement to Christians, no matter what they're doing in their life. But I know you do some really cool things down there at Louisville. You preach at Louisville, Texas, correct?
That's correct. Yes, we started our 16th year here last month, and we love living in Texas, and we appreciate the kind of thing you guys do to encourage Christians, not just preachers.
Well, it has been a pleasure to, it's been a pleasure to work with these guys. I had to stop and think about it for a minute, but.
And you stopped and thought about Dale, his brother that we had on a couple of weeks ago. Well, it's been a pleasure to work with him, I guess.
Thank you. Thanks.
So before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about the seasons. Tell us about the seasons in Texas.
Well, we have 2 seasons, basically, summer and spring. And right now it will be about 102 today, about I think 6th or 7th day in a row over 100 degrees. And it's very hot and very humid also.
Yes. And you're right there on the lake, or pretty close to the lake.
We are. We have a lake about probably 5 miles from my home and about 3 miles from our church building. And a lot of people use it for recreation and fishing. And it's a pretty good sized lake. There are a lot of lakes in this area.
But I know of one, and that's Lake Travis, but that's the only one I've really ever heard of.
Yeah, that's down in Houston.
Okay.
That's about probably 5 hours away.
Okay.
Pretty well known Texas lake, yes.
Yeah, that's the one I've heard of. So.
Well, a lot of water down that way.
Yes.
And it's very, very beautiful to fly over, because I've flown into Dallas several times, and it's always pretty flying.
It is, especially beautiful flying at night when you fly in. It's the beautiful skyline, a lot of lights. Pretty neat.
Now Pablo has a big lake not too far from his house too, but that would kind of be the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, it's called the Pacific Ocean. Yeah.
Very, very good joke, Keith.
And
how far is that, Pablo, from you?
10 minutes.
Oh,
No
beautiful.
Yeah, no more. So,
but when you fly into Lima, though, I don't know how many times I have flown in and could not see anything until we touched down, because it's always so hazy right there. But
yeah,
I would love to fly into Lima sometime when it was clear, but that happens like what, twice a year maybe.
yeah.
if that.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, Jeff, I saw you posted something on Facebook here a couple of weeks ago. You were doing breakfast with the preacher. Did we lose Jeff?
Thank you for. Nope, there he is.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened there, Keith. I lost you for a second.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay. Everybody loses me at some time or another. But no, I saw on Facebook a couple of weeks ago that you were doing something within the congregation there at Louisville that you called Breakfast with the Preacher.
Yes.
I thought that was a really cool idea, and I wanted to hear more about it. How you set it up, what you hope to accomplish, and stuff like that.
And really how successful it's been too. I'd like to hear about that as well.
Yes, I would like to.
So a few years ago, our congregation went through a difficult time losing a youth minister who had been very much loved by the church. He left and went to another, moved away, and so we were without a youth minister for a few months while we did a search. And during that time, I had seen several preachers who said, "Come meet me at Starbucks and I'll buy you a cup of coffee. We can talk about the Bible or just talk about life or whatever you want to talk about." And I'm not a huge coffee drinker myself, unfortunately, but I love Chick-fil-A. And I got to thinking, how can I connect with these kids during this time? And so I just decided to make an announcement one Sunday. I said, I'm going to be at Chick-fil-A Friday morning at 6:30. I'd love for all the teens to come join me for breakfast. And so I thought we might have, 5 or 6 teens. I didn't know how many would show up. We had about 35 teens that showed up.
Oh, wow.
So I told them I would buy their breakfast, thinking I would have 5 or 6, of course. So I thought I was going to have to take out a loan. But
Take out a loan.
Yeah, so they seemed to enjoy themselves. We just sat around and talked and asked them about school. It was during the middle of the school year, so it was especially rough for them not to have a youth minister during that time. But we just talked about school, talked about their athletics, about their school programs and different events they had going on. And we just sat around and visited for, say, about 30 minutes or an hour. Some of them had to leave earlier. And they all, started. It was very interesting after that at church would gather for worship. They would come and talk to me, and some of them had never spoken to me before.
Yeah.
And started building a relationship, I think, that was really good. And so they said, when are we going to do this again? And I said, I need to save up some money. One of the issues we have in our church, we have students in about 10 different high schools in this area. And so some of them couldn't come to the first time we did it because their school was in another district. And so I said, okay, next time we're going to have it somewhere else. And so we just started rotating different Chick-fil-A's in different communities. And every time a different group would come. We did it for about once a month for a while. And then we hired a youth minister, and we kind of cut back on it a little bit. That's been probably 4 or 5 years ago now when we started. And we've just tried to continually do it through the years. And we had our first one recently prior to school kicking off. And then we actually have one this Friday in a different location. So it's been really good for me. It's been good, I think, for the kids. Somebody told me one time that teenagers oftentimes feel more connected to the church if they build a relationship with somebody other than just their youth minister. If they can build a relationship with somebody who's older, and they all think I'm ancient anyway. So, so we, but we have
they don't know yet.
They don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, right. So we have a good relationship. We do it pretty regularly now, and I personally love it. Since then, I've done a couple of other things, like invited some of the younger kids during the summer. We did it with just the younger kids. I always announce, when I announce it, I always say, any kids come, preacher will buy the breakfast. Parents, you're on your own. So you can come, but you have to buy it. So
I ain't buying.
Right, that's right. I'm buying the old people breakfast. Then I did one time, I did it with, I have a group of older people called prime timers. I said, I left to have the prime timers have breakfast with the preacher. So some of the older men came, and it's just kind of been a relationship building event, and people seem to look forward to it. They always want to see pictures, and I've really enjoyed getting to know some of the teens that I don't think I would have gotten to know if we hadn't done this.
It's always been my opinion that a lot of times I don't think that we take the time that we need to take, the necessary time that we need to take in order to fellowship with one another, in order to build relationships with one another. And we should always be looking for opportunities like that breakfast with the preacher, or breakfast with the prime timers, or breakfast with the old people. And we should always be looking for opportunities like that to fellowship with one another and build relationships with one another, because relationships between Christians make us stronger Christians. You know what I mean? They make us stronger Christians. They help us, they support us, they encourage us, and they inspire us as we're living this Christian life. And when you have somebody by your side, somebody that you can count on, somebody that you can trust to talk to, somebody that you can open up to about some problems that you're having in your life, then it makes it so much easier as a Christian. And I think what you're doing awesome. I think it's awesome, Jeff. And I may actually try to mirror something here at the Paintsville congregation off of that, because that is just a great, great idea.
Well, again, I'm not sure I originated the idea. I kind of built
Right.
around what some other guys have done. And I think anything we can do, I think you're exactly right, Zach, anything we can do to build relationships, because as all of us go through our walk with God, it's sad for anybody to have to go through it by themselves. And so the more relationships we can build, the stronger our faith will be, I believe.
Amen.
And those relationships, there are, okay, so the reason I reached out to you, Jeff, and asked you to come on and talk about this was I thought it was a cool idea. But there are so many different things that we can be doing to help build those relationships, and so often we just don't, for whatever reason, and it may be time, it may be money. When you start looking at buying breakfast for 35 teenagers or whatever,
that you didn't know you signed up for.
Exactly right.
And Pablo in the church at Callao, Pablo, I know you guys do a lot of things together. They're with the church in Callao, and I'm in some ways I'm kind of envious of the environment that you have there that enables you to do those things. But I think the thing is that we do, whatever it is that we are doing. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't do a lot of ministry stuff on this program. And I suppose my idea or my goal was that maybe some of our listeners would, encourage their preachers to do some things, or maybe even do some things themselves to build relationships.
Sounds like a wild animal. Where's there a wild animal at?
Well, it's the goose.
Pablo.
The goose is not happy.
Yeah, and Kit, last Monday we have a Bible study at the home on a nice Christian family. It's 5 brothers, Christian, all of them with families. The 2 sisters of that family are inviting the preachers to have breakfast after service. As you know, in Callao we have service at 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And after everything, these 2 ladies were inviting one preacher or one minister of the church to have breakfast together. And that is that encourages us to continue providing spiritual food to the church.
It's very good. Very good. And, I think we need to look for applicable ways that we can do it as well. Like Miranda, my fiance, my soon-to-be wife on September 7th, Keith. We're getting close, man. We're getting
very
close.
Wow.
And she mentioned to me the other day, she's like, after every service, whether it's a midweek Bible study or whether it's Sunday evening or Sunday morning, she said, we always go out to eat. We always go out to eat after services. She said, why don't we just take a couple or one member and we ask them to go eat lunch with us, or ask them to go eat dinner with us, and ask us to just go do it and fellowship with one another, talk to one another, ask them if they need anything, if they having any problems that they're experiencing or anything that they need help with or guidance with. And I thought it was a fantastic idea, and I think that we're definitely going to follow up on something like that. And it kind of goes back into the breakfast with the preacher idea, and I think that's such a wonderful idea. And I think what you're doing, Jeff, is fantastic. But we need to look for applicable ways to do things like that. And there are so many opportunities that arise every single day of our lives that we could use to do things like that we could use to draw closer to one another as Christians, that we could use to strengthen our relationship with one another as Christians. But I think oftentimes that we just look over them. It's not that, I don't think it's that we don't care. It's just that we just don't feel like taking the time to do the things that we need to be doing that are going to better our relationships with one another.
Zach, you're exactly right. We don't build strong relationships, healthy relationships accidentally. So we have to be intentional about it. Where I preach, we have about 850 people in the church, and it would be very easy for me to not work to build relationships because we're so busy, doing ministry. But if we're intentional about it, whether it's like Pablo said, having breakfast with a family, or taking a couple out to eat lunch on Sunday, going to have coffee with people, breakfast with the preacher, whatever it is, we got to be intentional if we're going to build those relationships.
It's a very, very good point. We have to make the effort to be intentional too. You can't just, it's not going to happen in passing, like you said. It's not going to happen on accident. You have to make an effort to be intentional about building relationships with one another, because if you do not make the effort, you're never going to do it.
Right.
But it must be healthy too, right? It's not only a relationship, because you can be a friend of a member or build a relationship, but you might not be a good example. So, that will affect the perception of these members.
I've got one more thing to say, Keith. How many times have you heard somebody in the church say, well, I just don't come anymore because it didn't seem like anybody really cared. It didn't seem like anybody really wanted me to be there or made the time to notice me that I was there and notice the fact that I was trying and doing so. And we hear those things all the time, and we think, oh, well, that's their own problem. That's their issue. But how many times can we place that back on us and say, you know what? I don't think I really tried. I didn't really make an effort to notice what they were doing for the congregation. I didn't really make an effort to better my relationship with that person.
Okay, so Jeff, you there at Louisville. I'm going to try to tie in with what Zach just said there. You said you've got 800 plus. I know that there is no way that you were able to speak to every member every Sunday.
Right, exactly right. Yes. We have several different doors that people walk out to leave the building, and I can only be at one door at a time.
Right. It doesn't matter whether you've got 800 or whether you've got 8. There are going to be those individuals who seemingly, you hate to say this, but it's almost like they want to slip through the cracks. Do you have any suggestions for an effective way to reach out and build relationships with those members? Because I've never been blessed to be able to be with you there at Louisville, but I can almost assure that you've got some of the same individuals coming up to you after services every Sunday morning, talking to you.
Sure.
Same ones week after week.
Sure. So I think one thing that we can do as, as preachers, those of us who are preachers, is that we can only do our part, but we have to expect that others will do their part. So we have 11 elders, and they stand in the lobby. They stand at different doors every Sunday, every service. So our people, I want our people to know our elders, and I want our elders to know our people. And so they get to know them. We do a special greeting on Sunday morning at the beginning of the worship service, before the worship service starts, where we invite all of our guests just to remain seated. We invite all of our members to stand and go speak to somebody who is sitting down. And that it's not quite as embarrassing. Some people like to have the guests stand. Some people who are guests will not stand because they're embarrassed by it, but this is a little less intrusive to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very successful. We have a great greeting program where we have men who stand at the doors and literally open the doors and walk in. We have a group of men who do what we call valet parking, where guests and the older people can pull their cars up underneath a driveway, and they'll actually take their car and park it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so just a lot of different ways that our goal is we don't want anybody to walk out of that building thinking this is not a friendly group of people, and these are not people who don't love each other.
I'm just going to say, Jeff, I don't think the goose likes you. Every time you begin to talk, man, it starts making that noise. I don't think it likes you. I don't think it likes the sound of your voice.
That's kind of the way it is every Sunday. Every time I start talking, some baby screaming or something.
I just don't think it likes your voice.
I don't know either, yeah.
But that's a fantastic group of things that you've got going on there that help you guys reach as many members and as many people that you have that visit your congregation, because I can barely we have about 120 to 130, and I can barely get around to all of them because, like you said, we have different doors that everybody leaves out of, and it's hard to get to everybody before they can get out the doors. And Keith, I'd say you're definitely down the same alley as me with 250. I mean, you're struggling just to greet 100 of them probably. So, I mean, it's so difficult as preachers and as leaders of the congregation to get to everybody that you want to get to and to talk to them. And you maybe need to devise some intentional ways that you can greet them, that you can talk to them, and that you can strengthen your relationship together.
So one thing, let me tell you one thing real quick. I sent out a weekly letter to all of our members, email. Every week I send it out just to try to encourage the whole church family. And what I say to them periodically is, if you bring a guest to church with you, or if you meet someone sitting close to you who is new, would you be willing to bring them to where I'm standing and introduce them to me? And that's been very helpful. So people will come to where I am, and they'll say that, I want you to meet Jeff. Jeff wants you to meet so-and-so. And so that gives me an opportunity to speak to guests that I might not get to speak to, because we can't see. I don't care what size church it is. If it's of any size at all, it's hard to see everybody. And so if we can get our members to, again, to be intentional, that seems to help.
Yep. It's a very good point.
Now Zach's got the wind blowing.
Oh, it feels good too. It feels beautiful. It makes it even prettier when the wind blows, because those trees start.
I started to try to go outside this morning, and then with the humidity the way it already is, I said no. I'm going to go inside this morning. But maybe next week. Maybe next week.
Next week.
But, okay, so I had one other thing I was going to bring up, and I'm going to bring it up even though we've only got about 3.5 minutes left. I was watching tuned into a webinar one time, and it was it was not put on by anyone in the Church of Christ. And I don't even remember why I was watching it, but one of the guys made the comment that so many in churches view the preacher, he called him the pastor, but they view the preacher almost as and I even hate to say the term that he used, but he said a rock star. How do we not go there? How do we make ourselves approachable? Because people know that we have a hard time getting around to everyone and building those relationships with everyone. How do we let the church know that we don't want to be separate? Any suggestions there, Jeff?
Well, I think we just have to get involved in people's lives. And if we're involved in people's lives, I mean, I don't know you guys very well at all, but people who get to know me in the church where I am and spend any time with me, they know I'm a long way from being the kind of person I should be all the time. And they don't look at me as like I'm some kind of rock star, because they know my frailties and they know my weaknesses and they know I'm not perfect. And so I think the more time we spend with people and the more opportunity they get to know us, they'll treat us, more like normal people than like somebody that's up on a pedestal or something. And we have to, I think we have to be honest with people. We have to say to people, look, I struggle with the same things you struggle with. I have temptations in my life. I have weaknesses in my life. My family's not perfect. My marriage isn't perfect. And if we hold up ourselves as being something that we're not, if people then get to know us later on, that they're going to be very disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it all begins with tearing down that perception and, letting people know that, you are human, that you struggle with just everything else that everybody else struggles with, and that you need help just as much as they need help, and you need encouragement just as much as they need encouragement. And I think if you can build those type of relationships within your congregation, one, you're going to have a very strong congregation, and two, you're going to be a very effective preacher in that congregation.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are running out of time, and I just want to say this is episode number 100.
No, I don't like you, Keith. That goose don't like you now.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that goose quacking.
You began to think it was personal, weren't you, Jeff? You began to think it was personal.
It seems. No, he's asking for breakfast with the preacher.
As long as he doesn't make the.
That was a good one, Pablo. That was
very good, Pablo.
Okay, we've got to get off of here. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. And like I said, this is episode number 103. And check out our website, letstalkaboutchristianity.com. And we will see you next week.
Hey, thank you guys for what y'all are doing. It was great to be with y'all. Appreciate what you do.
It's been an honor, Jeff. See you guys later,
man.